Hey everybody, it's Delta Shiny Zeta here, bringing you another rankings video. So in this video, we're going to be ranking all charms in the game Hollow Knight. A little bit different than what I've been doing in the past, but I just decided to mix things up a little bit and branch out even more because of comments I've been getting. Anyway, Hollow Knight, as a quick little overview, I did a Let's Play of it a while back, a couple months ago or so. Basically a Metroidvania, and one of the main premises of the game is actually all of these different charms. There are 45 charms, technically speaking, but that includes ones that are like repeatable, if that makes sense, with like a different version of it. So in this list there's only 42, because the 3 unbreakable ones and fragile ones, you'll see that I'm only showing the unbreakable ones, but I will talk about the fragile ones a little bit too. So essentially I'm ranking 42 different charms in here. So yes, pretty big list, but it's also a pretty big game. So that makes sense. Before I get started with these rankings, you'll see that there's S, A, B, C, and D. I'm doing 5 tiers instead of 6 tiers. When it comes to ranking, it's always hard because, you know, I want to try to be as objective as possible. And with charms, it's a little bit weird because a lot of them are useful, but in specific situations. And a lot of the time when I try to, you know, rank these charms, it's going to be the ones that are more useful in different situations as opposed to like just one situation. Either way, it's hard to rank these, but we're going to do our best here. So we're going to start with the very first one over here, Stalwart Shell. It costs 2, you know, and it says that it protects the bear with the hard shell and focusing soul. There's a lot of these different types of charms that, you know, have to do with like when you're focusing, whether you're focusing faster or focusing slower, but ×2 healing, or protection ones like this one. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. This one in general, I would say, well, it's not like bad. It could have been better. Overall, I think the charm is okay, decent, a little bit below average. You'll find that a lot of these are probably going to be around here, like C, maybe B or so. But this one I think belongs in C, just because I do think that, you know, it could have seen a little bit more viability if it was a little bit better, at least, you know, because it can destroy, like eventually it's not indestructible and it will shatter if you take too much damage. I'm putting that one right there. The next one is Carefree Melody. This is one of the ones from the Grim Troop DLC, one of several ones, and this is I would say, in my opinion, it is one of the worst charms in the game. It costs 3, and it basically says that it may, keyword may, defend the bearer from damage, because yes, that's true, it may defend you. Sometimes it defends you, sometimes it doesn't. Overall, for the cost of 3, there are like so many more charms in this game that are just much better than this, you know, may protect you for 3. If it was less, like 1 or even 2, maybe it wouldn't be a D. It still wouldn't be great, but it wouldn't be a D probably. I just can't see this thing ever being more than a D because of just how bad it actually is. Sorry, but if you like this one, I don't know what to tell you. It's just not good. The next charm is Dash Master. Dash Master costs 2 charm notches, and it basically says that you're able to dash more often, as well as dashing downwards, which is a concept that's not in this game at all, unless you have this, of course. So it does increase your overall mobility, and it can be useful in, you know, some situations, you know, when it comes to like you wanting to speedrun the game, get through things faster. Sure. In general though, it's pretty average, I would say. Not the most useful one, even in terms of like trying to have more mobility, because there are some better ones that actually allow that. So in the end, I think this one's a C. It's not going to be down here in D with the absolute trash ones, but this one sees a little bit of use, so I can see it, you know, being a little bit viable in some ways. The next one is Deep Focus. Deep Focus costs a massive 4, yes, 4 charm notches, which is ridiculous, right? Basically, what it does is that it will allow you to focus more soul at a slower rate, but the healing effect is doubled. So, I don't know, a lot of people think that it's kind of a waste because, you know, if you're taking longer, but you can heal 2, isn't it the same if you're, you know, taking the normal amount of time but healing 1? I mean, the ratio's not perfectly even, but in the end, I understand that argument. When it comes to the ones that, you know, can generate you a little bit more, I guess, advantage when it comes to focusing soul, there are definitely much better ones. We'll get to a couple others that are just more solid charms in my opinion. I wouldn't say it's terrible though. Even with the 4 cost, which is really crazy, it can be useful in some situations depending on certain boss battles that will allow you to actually, you know, have longer gaps of healing. this can be more useful because you can get in 1 heal of time, but heal for 2, but not exactly healing 2 with the regular, focusing of soul, if that makes sense, because again, the ratio is not perfect. But overall, I would say it's C. I wish it was a little bit less in cost. That would have probably bumped it up to a B, but unfortunately, that's not the case. The next one is Defender's Crest. So this one costs only 1. And the information that it gives is actually very, very general. It just says, scratched and dirty but still cared for, causes the bearer to emit a heroic odor. Sort of like, what does that mean? Basically, it does constant damage to things that you're very nearby. It's okay, I would say. I appreciate it's only 1 because it literally is that garbage of a charm in terms of what it actually does. So thank God it's 1. That in itself, I think, merits it a little bit higher than D because it can be very slightly useful for the 1 cost. There's a reason why this thing is over here because it's trash for 3. I mean, there are even more trash ones for 1 than this one, but at least has, a little bit, a tiny bit of use, I guess, if that makes sense. I'm going to put this in C because while it's not great at all, it's okay. Alright, you're going to be noticing quite a big pattern here. As you can see, I'm already putting a bunch over here because I think a lot of them do deserve to be here, Next one is Dream Shield. Dream Shield says that it conjures a shield that follows the bearer and attempts to protect them. So it will, just like this one does have a limit, but it can protect you to a certain amount. I don't like that it's worth 3. I wish it was a little bit less and I could maybe put it up here and towards the B section. But because of that, because of what it does and the ratio of the cost to it, I just can't put this more than a C because while it's not terrible, it does have a little bit of practical use in some ways. So on a similar note, this one said Dream Shield. This next one is also going to go in C. Dream Wielder also costs 1, and it says allows the bearer to charge the Dream Nail faster and collect more soul when striking foes. Now, to a lot of people, this thing would be completely garbage. You might actually put it down here, but keep in mind that the strategy of using the Dream Nail to actually gain soul is actually pretty interesting because in some ways you can abuse that tactic. I know that a lot of people who just play this game like regularly and don't know the specifics of what strategies might just overlook that, but it can be useful in a way. And so because of that, because of the specific usefulness of it and the fact that it only costs 1, I think it actually goes here because in certain strategies that you can implement, that whole thing of being able to charge faster, you can really take advantage of that. You could even do this, to certain bosses, and if you time it right with its faster speed, you can get your soul and then use your abilities, which is great, or, heal some more, damage that you took or anything like that. So I'll put it there and see. The next one on the list is Fluke Nest. Now, Fluke Nest was one that prior to a patch or an update, it was actually like really, really good. Even as high as here, because it was so freaking broken in terms of the damage that it could actually do. But ever since the patch, it definitely, it got bounced a little bit more. It's still really good. Essentially, it exchanges the range with much higher damage output. So your damage per second does increase, but from closer range. In general, it's pretty damn good. Yes, it costs 3, but a lot of people do think it's very well worth actually putting it here, especially when combined with certain other charms, which are going to be up here, which I'll get into in just a little bit. But just know that if you do want to try something that will generate more damage per second, give this a shot, because you may be surprised at just how good this thing can actually be. Just saying. The next one is Fury of the Fallen. So Fury of the Fallen says that when close to death, the bearer's strength will increase. So it basically gives the same increase as Fragile Strength / Unbreakable Strength, but only when you're at 1 hit point left. This one costs 2 though, as opposed to more with the other charm, which we'll get into in just a little bit. In general, what I would say about this one is that I know that a lot of people, especially those who are just playing the game regularly, are going to put it down here. They're like, what the heck? Why would I ever just want to be in 1 health point, 1 hit away from death just to do more damage? I'm not going to put it down here though, because certain players and certain types of runs have actually popularized this a little bit more, to the point where yes, in general, it's a pretty bad charm, but in the specific type situations, and specifically if you actually are a master at this game, and you purposely get down to 1 hit point, but you know for a fact that you're not going to get hit, if you put this on, it's actually very interesting because you could blow through the game, just breeze through it really fast in certain bosses and certain situations. And for that, for those people specifically, it becomes really, really good, like higher up here. But for the majority of people, it's basically down here. In general, because of what I mentioned before, I can't put it in D. I'm going to put it a little bit higher because in general, as a charm, it's not awful. It's not. The next one on the list is this one I always end up forgetting the, okay, oh sorry, it's Gathering Swarm, that's right. I don't know why, but with this icon I end up getting confused with this one and another one. Gathering Swarm, this is one that I'm definitely going to have to put much lower. Now, I'm going to actually put this one down here. The main reason why, and I know some of you may disagree with this, is like, oh man, you can get free money, you know, from far away that you couldn't reach before. Yes, but you really have to think about this, the way that Hollow Knight works, like in terms of physics and in terms of how you are moving from point A to point B. What I mean by that is that if you think about it, almost anytime you defeat an enemy in this game, like you defeat it and all the money comes out, you know, blasts everywhere, more often than not, you're going to be walking toward that direction anyway. And I noticed this throughout when I was actually putting this charm, and eventually I was like, wait a minute, what am I even doing here? I mean, yeah, it picks up stuff for you, but like, again, you're only kind of like getting it a little bit sooner because you're going to be walking that way anyway. So in a way, it was kind of useless, I saw. There's very, very few times where you're like, oh shoot, I killed an enemy, but all the money went that way down into a pit down there. I don't want to jump down there and get it, just get it for me. I mean, sure, but I can't really, you know, see putting it higher than this, because in general, you're just going to be walking towards that window and picking up the money. Like, seriously, trust me on this. Like, try it out for yourself and then be like, wait, wasn't I going to go that way anyway? I think you are. I think you are. Anyway, the next one is Glowing Womb. Glowing Womb costs 2, and it says the hatchlings, basically, they'll sacrifice themselves to protect their parent, aka you. This, in my opinion, is one of the worst charms, just because there's much better options when it comes to, you know, having different abilities and different things that can actually help you out. You know, there's just better uses. Definitely. It's just not worth it. Even if it was at 1, like, I don't know, would I even put it higher? I think it's a bad one. I think it's a really bad one. So I'm going to put it here just because I really can't see this thing having any practical use, you know, for the most part. So that's where I'm going to leave it at. The next one is Grim Child. Grim Child also costs 2, and this one says that the bearer must seek the Grimkin and collect their flames. Uncollected flames will appear on the bearer's map. Yeah, whatever. Basically, what it does though, after you finish it and you keep strengthening it, so this is purely me judging it after it's at full strength, once you actually collected all the flames and stuff. I'm going to put this as high as over here because it's actually really good of a companion one. It does a pretty good amount of damage per hit once it's fully upgraded. If it's not, it's pretty garbage, but when it's upgraded, heck yeah, it's actually pretty damn useful. If you want something alongside of that just does constant pretty good damage, put this one on, because this one is not requiring you to use like your, you know, your soul or anything like that. It's not. You just put it on and it attacks for you. It does some damage, which is pretty useful. You know, I think it deserves to be up here as B because it really is that good of a charm. The next two are 2 grub ones. We're going to start with Grubberfly's Elegy. This one says when the bearer is at full health, they will fire beams of white hot energy from their nail. So it's pretty good. It's okay, but in general, you know, because of the fact that you actually have to be at full health, it really is a major turnoff for a lot of people, because the average gamer, you know, in Hollow Knight is not going to be at full health the majority of the time. They're going to be taking damage here and there, and yes, they can go back to full health when they heal, but they'll just take damage again, you know, because they're not amazing at Hollow Knight. If you're amazing at Hollow Knight, sure, this thing might be a little bit more useful to you, but in general, I think it's a C tier. I mean, you know, it has its uses, it's pretty cool, you know, but the fact that it also costs 3, like, it costs 3 charm notches and you have to be at full health. That's a big cost for what it can do, so I don't think so. The next one though, Grubsong. Grubsong, to me, it's very fascinating. It only costs 1 and it says gain soul when taking damage. Now here's the thing. Grubsong is incredibly useful for, like, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. Grubsong is one of those charms that just seems to be useful for like every type of Hollow Knight player. Like, seriously. Like, if you're really terrible at Hollow Knight, if you're so bad at Hollow Knight, Grubsong is amazing. Because it only costs 1 charm notch and you're going to be gaining soul all the time. Like, if you suck at Hollow Knight and you keep getting hit and hit and hit, guess what? At least you're getting soul. So then use it. Use your magic spells, you know? Use that stuff. Like, that's pretty good. Or heal up constantly, and take more damage, get some more free heals. You're not even doing any damage to enemies and you're gaining some free heals. So yes, if you're a terrible Hollow Knight player, this thing's good. If you're a really good Hollow Knight player, this thing is also really good, because if you're good enough at this game to the point where you know the strategies, you will be purposely taking hits in situations to gain more soul, to be able to take use and advantage of this thing, to be able to use some powerful magic spells like your damn spirit and your howling wraiths and whatever, like all these crazy good abilities, which is really good. So you would know how to strategize this. I'm going to put this as high as A, because just the whole practicality of being applicable to every single player out there, as well as the cost of only one. I think it's one that's really difficult to pass on, because it's very convenient for you. Let's just say that. The next one, oh great, this one is Heavy Blow. This one is not so good. Actually, it's terrible. Heavy Blow costs 2, and it says increase the force of the bearer's nail, causing enemies to recoil further when hit. There are very little situations, I mean very little situations, where knocking an enemy further back is actually advantageous to you. A lot of the time, you actually don't want to do that. What you want to do is stay close to the enemy so you can spam your hits and kill them as fast as possible. Like, if you use this to knock them back, guess what you have to do most of the time? You gotta follow that enemy, take some more steps to the enemy and attack it again, and then if it has even more health, you gotta follow it again and hit it again. It's very annoying. It's very annoying, and there's very few situations where you're like, oh, I'm gonna hit you to knock you off the platform so you can fall and die. Yes, that's possible, that's a thing, but more often than not, you're gonna want to kill them. Especially when combined with other things that upgrade your nail even more. Like, that's what you want to do, kill them as fast as possible. This thing is just absolute, like, of a joke, I would say, because it's just not good. The next one is Hive Blood. Now, Hive Blood, this one varies a lot. A lot of people have so many opinions on this thing. I've seen some people put this thing as high as A. I've seen others, as low as D. Many people are in the middle. I personally think that it belongs in the D. Yes, D. Here's the reason why. Hive Blood, first of all, it costs 4. Okay, and it says, heals the bearer's wounds over time, allowing them to regularly gain health without focusing soul. First of all, this is a little bit misleading. You're not going to constantly continue healing. You can only gain it once per, like for example, if you're at 1 health, and you just wait, you're going to go to 2 health. But you're not going to go to 3 health and 4 health and 5, it stops at 1. You get 1 heal, and then you get hit again, it starts over again. You get to get another heal. So yes, you can always be gaining 1 health back every, I think it's like 12 to 15 seconds, something like that. But you're not going to keep going more and more and more. You can't just go from 1 health to max health with this thing by just standing still. That's not how that works. The fact that it can only heal 1 at a time, max of 1 at a time, for a cost of 4 already makes it pretty bad. Also, in many situations, you'll be better off gaining a lot more health, if you have things like your, it's kind of spoiling further, but like, your quick focus ability and stuff like that, because you can do a lot of damage. You can do a lot more damage to an enemy or a boss in 15 seconds to gain enough soul to then heal back a couple health if you have your deep focus, as opposed to waiting 15 seconds of dodging the enemy, not getting hit and healing 1. That's a lot harder. It has a very nice use at the white, remember that, what's it called? The Path of Pain. Yes, sorry. The Path of Pain. It has a good use with that, and really that whole level, that whole dungeon area, because if you get hit, at least there's no enemies. Just wait it out, wait 15 seconds, gain your health, try again. If you get hit by a spike, wait it out again. You'll never die. You'll never die in there. So it's good with that, but aside from that, it's pretty lackluster. Alright, now we're moving on to some of the Lifeblood ones. We have Josephines Blessing first. To be honest, the Lifeblood ones, these offer a different strategy when it comes to bosses. Like, there's one strategy of like using quick focus and gaining a lot of soul and then healing back quickly and all that stuff. Then there's another strategy of no healing at all. Just don't heal, because if you use Lifeblood, like with this Josephines Blessing, you can't heal at all. But it's more of like a battle where you're rushing to kill a boss, like who can kill each other first, because you can't heal. Yes, you have more health, but nobody can heal. You can't heal. You gotta be aggressive. Most people tend to avoid this, and I can see that, but if you want to do some kind of different type of run of challenges against bosses, sure, you know, fine, fair enough. But in general, I can't really see this thing being, you know, used more than the D tier because it's very, very specific in terms of what it can actually do. So I'm going to put that one right there. The next one is King Soul. King Soul requires a massive 5. Yes, 5 charm notches, and it says the bearer will slowly absorb the limitless soul contained within. Opens the way to a birthplace. Enough said. It's terrible. For 5, you'll gain soul very, very slowly. Oh my gosh. Nothing like that is worth 5. Ever. Ever. Enough said. This is one where, like, no matter what tier list you see online, everybody places this garbage at the very, very bottom because it's absolute of a joke. Like, absolutely just trash, you know? Okay. Moving on to a couple more Lifeblood ones. We have Lifeblood Core and Lifeblood Heart. I'll be doing these at the same time because they're very similar. Lifeblood Core costs 3. Lifeblood Heart costs 2. They both basically do the same thing. It says when resting, the bearer will gain a coating of Lifeblood that protects from a large amount of damage for the core or a modest amount of damage for the heart. They both basically give you additional health, but it's Lifeblood specifically, and you'll only heal it when you're at a bench. You can't heal this through focus, obviously. You can't do that. So I'm going to put the Lifeblood ones down here in general because, again, the majority of people tend to avoid these. Again, they're kind of cool if you want to do a different type of boss run or boss challenge, but for the most part, you're going to want to avoid this because you're better off just focusing soul and healing it back, even though you have less of a max health. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. So I'm going to put those there. The next one is Longnail. Longnail is, it's interesting. I'll say that. I'm going to put Longnail as high as A over here. Yes, and you may be thinking like, whoa, why? Well, Longnail basically says it allows them to strike, you know, foes from further away. It's the weaker one of the 2 range ones, I would say, because the other one is Mark of Pride, and this one costs 2. Mark of Pride is 3, which we'll get into in just a little bit. Wait, actually, sorry, this one's next. I should just be doing these together because they're 2 similar ones again. So yeah, Longnail and Mark of Pride. Mark of Pride is the same thing. It just says greatly increases. That's the only difference, but it's 2 and it's 3 for the cost. Mark of Pride is generally seen as a better one. One of the best, I repeat, one of the best charms in the game. The ability to strike further with your nail is fantastic. Because with that, you're able to avoid dangerous situations against bosses, against the typical enemy, attacking further from away. Amazing, amazing stuff. Equipping both of these does stack. Just saying, it does stack. So if you want to have really tremendous range, make sure that you actually equip them both because it basically costs 5 for both. Not bad at all. So yeah, highly recommend these. The next one is Nail Master's Glory. It only costs 1 and it says increases the bearer mastery of nail arts, allowing them to focus their power faster and unleash arts sooner. It only costs 1, and some of these nail arts actually are really good, especially during certain enemies and certain bosses. For the most part, the cost of 1 just to improve these is also really, really good. I'm going to put this as high as B. While I don't think it's like OP over here, I do think it's very practical for what it can do, especially only costing 1. So yeah, if you want to try to, you know, increase these nail art, you know, powers and just the way it works, yeah, do them because focusing faster and unleashing them sooner is a huge difference in the long run. And in the end, games like this one, all about timing, all about speed. And if you can implement things faster, if you can utilize strategies faster, you're better off, especially against those super tricky bosses near the end of the game. So, yeah. The next one is Quick Focus. This one costs 3, and it says increases the speed of focusing soul, allowing the bearer to heal damage faster. Out of all the charms in this game that have to do with focusing, whether it's focusing faster or getting protection with focusing and stuff like that, a lot of people agree that the Quick Focus is by far the best one. It costs 3, yes, but it's amazing. You have to think about this in terms of what the developers were doing when they made the game. A lot of the bosses, like, you know, when it comes to finding a gap, like when their attack pattern, like, oh, they're, you know, not attacking for 2 seconds, that's my chance to heal one, you know, for 1 health or something. Think about it like that. The fact that they made the game knowing the speed of their like attacks and then the gap of when you can actually find like a break, you know, but you can do this. If you equip this, it's basically breaking a fundamental mechanic of the game because you're able to bypass the mechanic that the developers intended for you to do. You know, that those 2 seconds, 1 heal goes to 2 heals instead. And by doing that every time you find that gap in a boss battle and you're healing for double, your survivability percentage is increasing dramatically in the long run because every single time, you know, you then hit the enemy a little bit more, you know, gain some soul, find that gap again, and heal 2 more. So even if you suck at Hollow Knight, this thing is fantastic because you're able to take twice as many hits against bosses, as long as you know the gap, the break time, you know, when you're able to do that. So yeah, it's really, really good. Highly recommend this one too. The next one, oh yeah, we're into some really good ones here. This one is Quick Slash. It also costs 3, and it says the nails still long to be wielded. It allows the bearer to slash much more rapidly with their nail. I don't even have to explain this. This is one of the charms in the game, which almost every single player out there knows. It is by far one of the best ones ever. A lot of you know that after every attack, you know, bosses stand still for like a second. You get to do 1 or 2 hits in there, you know, and then you gotta like move away and then jump their next attack or whatever. This thing, it again breaks the fundamental nature of the game. If you have this, you're able to do an extra hit every time. Because of that, you're able to kill bosses faster, and in the end, you're having to dodge less attacks because the boss is dying sooner. This in combination with this is also really fantastic, because if you're able to attack faster, get more hits in, it also means not only are you doing more damage to the boss, but you're also gaining more soul faster. So you're able to take advantage of this to the point where you might actually have a lot of soul left over, and you can then use, you know, your leftover soul on some spells or stuff, you know, which is really great. Those things are boss killers as well, so it's really useful. Yes, almost nobody like ever not runs this, like seriously. And we're still on the trend of some of the best ones in the game. Yes, the Shaman Stone. Shaman Stone is another one that costs 3, and it says increases the power of spells, dealing more damage to foes. I know it sounds very basic, but yes, a lot of people know that spells are huge boss killers. Like your freaking, what's it called? Your Shea Soul thing. Your oh my god, I'm trying to remember your, what's it called? Abyss Shriek, or Howling Raids. Like these things are crazy boss killers. This thing buffs all those up. So if you're able to do more damage, that's fantastic. Seriously, that is so fantastic. If you are going to spell route, it's an S. Now, if you're not going to spell route, because you know, in the end, you're not going to be able to equip all this crap up here, you know, unless you want to be overcharmed. And you kind of have to pick. Do you want to do like the, you know, the melee version or the magic version, you know? And I don't know, a lot of people tend to choose one or the other. You can do a hybrid of both, but then you lose a couple of things here and there, which is fine. But in the end, you're either not ever going to use this if you want to do this pure brute force of melee attacks, or you're always going to use this. It just kind of depends, but yeah, I'm putting that up there too. The next one is Shape of Un. Shape of Un is one that a lot of people tend not to really give this one attention to, because you get this much later in the game when you're able to access the part where you actually can get this. It basically says that while focusing soul, you're able to take on a new shape and can move freely. Now you can't do things like, you know, jumping and stuff, but you can move left or right to avoid taking some damage in some situations. I'm going to put this as B because it only costs 2, and to be honest, I would say it's probably the second best soul, or sorry, not soul, focus charm, if that makes sense. This one's by far the best one. But if you don't want to run this, you know, because it costs 3 and you need just one with 2, try this one, because this one is the, you know, regular ratio, but you can move away from stuff, which is really good. Again, it's unfortunate that you get this later in the game, to the point where a lot of people just play this one. They're like, yeah, I'll just use this one instead, which is fine, that's fair, but sometimes it helps to give some of these things a chance. It can be pretty useful, so I'm going to put it right there. The next one is Sharp Shadow. Sharp Shadow is one that, I mean, I think it's definitely good. Not great, but good. It says that when using the Shadow Dash, the bearer's body will sharpen and damage enemies. It's really good against certain bosses. Like, it really is good. Because damaging enemies while just like dodging and using your damn Shade Cloak, that's really good, right? As long as you're good at dodging moves, you can just eventually hit enemies and kill them by using this. You don't really have to be attacking all that much. Because of that, and because of how busted it is on some boss battles, I'm actually going to put this a little bit up here. I'm not going to put it down here and see. The next two are Soul Catcher and Soul Eater. So Soul Catcher and Soul Eater, okay. I'm going to put Soul Catcher in A because I think it's that good, and Soul Eater is going to drop down to B a little bit. These ones are actually opposite in terms of like the ratio of how much they cost and the effect of them. Basically, they're about gaining soul faster. Soul Catcher says increases the amount of soul gained when striking an enemy with a nail, and Soul Eater right here says greatly increases. This one costs 2 charm notches, and this one costs 4 slots. So I know some of you were like, wait a minute, so over here with the freaking, you know, Mark of Pride and Long Nail, the better one you put higher, the shittier one you put lower. But this one, the shittier one you're putting here, and the better one you're putting lower. That's because of the ratio. More people, or almost everybody in the community, knows that in terms of a ratio of how much it grants you and how much it's costing in terms of notches, Soul Catcher is just overall better. Because a lot of the time putting both is not ideal because it's costing you 6 notches just to gain soul faster. If you're gonna pick one or the other, just choose this one. Don't choose this one and not this one. It doesn't make sense. It's better to choose this one for 2 and then use your extra 2 instead of, you know, going for just this one. Use your extra 2 for some other charm alongside this one instead of just that one, if that makes sense. It's just overall better. It has to do with ratios, but again, that's why, in case you're wondering. The next one is a Spell Twister. Spell Twister is also really good, especially when combined with the Shaman Stone. I'm not going to put this one up here in S like it's broken like these up here, but I'm going to put this one down here. It basically says that it reduces your, you know, cost of casting spells. So if you're doing this one plus Shaman Stone, you know, dealing more damage with spells and reducing the cost, you can in the long run do a lot more spells, especially when you have those vessel fragments that allow you to carry even more soul. And especially if you have things like, you know, this one which grants you more, this one which increases your attack your attack speed, you know, to gain more soul, and then this one, anytime you take damage you gain more soul. You see how busted this is? Like these two, you know, in terms of the nail, this thing when taking damage, maybe one of these things for increasing, you know, the nail range, and then maybe these as well. Like it's crazy just how busted you can actually be with all these really good ones, you know? Spore Shroom I'm gonna put in C. This one says that when focusing soul, it made a spore cloud slowly damages enemies. I'm not putting it down to D here because it only costs 1. And for what it does, considering you get this earlier in the game, it's pretty solid early in the game. It's not bad. You obviously don't have deep focus yet, so if you're focusing soul, you want a little bit of protection maybe, you know? So I'm going to put this one here. I think that's perfectly reasonable that it can, you know, protect you a little bit in some ways, so yeah, let's just, you know, let's go with that. The next one is Sprint Master. Sprint Master allows you to, you know, run faster, increases the running speed of your knight character. I'm going to put this one at C. Certain people will use it. If you're speed running through the game, obviously you want something faster. That's going to be useful. For most people, it's not going to be practical, I would say. Just mainly because there's a lot better, more convenient ones you can do that actually have stuff to do with combat or soul, which are generally the better ones. Moving faster is cool, but it doesn't really do that much. Yes, in some situations it will allow you to, you know, avoid certain enemy attacks and boss attacks, but for the most part, not necessarily so. Still, the fact that it's 1 makes it not garbage, because it at least can be useful in some ways, you know, so. The next one though, okay, this one is Stalwart Shell. Stalwart Shell is also an average one, I would say. I'm gonna put this one in C as well. I think it definitely deserves the C spot. In case you don't know what it does, Stalwart Shell says, makes it easier to escape from dangerous situations. Builds resilience when recovering from damage. You know that invincibility frame stuff in those games? It essentially extends it longer. Let's just say that. So if you suck at Hollow Knight, it can help. But at the same time, in most situations, when you get hit by an attack, during those regular invincibility frames without this charm, you're able to jump away and move away, which is why I don't think it's good. You know, I'm putting it in C because it's not awful as well, but yeah, I just can't see this going on anywhere higher than that. Next one is Steady Body. Steady Body to me, honestly, I think it's freaking busted as hell. Like, I think it's so busted. It only costs 1. I'll start with that. Only costs 1, and it says allows one to stay steady and keep attacking. In case you don't know Hollow Knight and its physics mechanics, every time you attack an enemy with a nail, bam, attack, you will actually get recoil and bounce back a little bit. Now, it's not crazy. It's not like, you know, on the contrary, like the freaking heavy one, you know, heavy blow or whatever, where like they go more launching a little bit more back. It's not like that much, but it's a little annoying. And because of that, it's hard sometimes to attack enemies repeatedly because you attack and you get sent back, and then you have to move a little bit forward every time, but eventually the recoil is going to beat your moving forward and spamming attack. So because of that, you can't really take advantage of, you know, crazy damage per second against big enemies and big bosses, especially when combined with Quick Slash and a certain other one which we'll get to that increases your strength overall. If you use this one alongside your strength improvement, plus this one that I just mentioned, honestly, it's very busted because you'll never go back and you can just go like with really high damage, really high damage per second in general, really great ratio of recovering soul, thus allowing you to then use it right away on even more powerful spells or quick healing as well if you need to. Very, very broken, I would say. I think it's one of these situations again that it bypasses a natural mechanic of the game. And it kind of bypasses what the developers were intending initially in terms of how the game should be played. So yeah, next one on the list is Thorns of Agony. Thorns of Agony, I'm going to put it down to C. I think it deserves C, and for one specific reason. Obviously it's not really awful because it's only one. It's also one that you get earlier in the game, and it says that when taking damage, sprout thorny vines will damage nearby foes. Not bad, right? Not bad at all. Just a little bit of damage, but in most cases, if you're taking damage, you should be using something better like Grubsong. Grubsong will gain you soul, which you can then convert that into spells, or some healing again. Not necessarily just taking a hit, not gaining soul, and then doing a little bit of damage to an enemy next to you. It's okay. It's pretty good in the beginning of the game when you don't really have access to too much, so, well, you know, I'll say that. But other than that, that's about it for this one. The next one, actually the next three are the very interesting ones. These are what you would call the Unbreakable ones. Okay, so the Unbreakable ones, I guess we'll do them one at a time. I'll actually start with this best one. This one is Unbreakable Strength. This one is one of the most busted ones in the entire game as well. In case you don't know, this one increases your strength. Yes, it does. So this in combination with Quick Slash and, like I was saying before, a bunch of others up here, you know, like this one as well. Very, very overpowered. The fact that you can do so much crazy damage. Oh, and by the way, this is also with having your nail fully powered up as well by the freaking nailsmith guy. Assuming that, plus this bonus, plus a very quick rate of fire, plus no knockback every time when attacking, plus a long range of your nail. Like, do you realize how crazy this actually is? It's ridiculous. Yes, it definitely costs you a little bit in terms of notches, but it is very, very well worth it. Like, trust me on that. It's very well worth it. I'm going backwards on these. This one is going to go in B. This one basically improves your overall health. In terms of improving health, I would say it's better than the ones over here that have to do with, you know, making it into Lifeblood, because, you know, in general, having not Lifeblood is better because you can heal it back, which is a great perk, you know, so that's why I would actually put it here. It also only costs 2. Unbreakable Strength costs 3. This one costs 2, you know, so I think it's useful for, you know, what it does there. And by the way, I am, you know, of course, obviously doing the Unbreakable versions. The Fragile versions, maybe I'll put them a little bit lower. Like, for example, if you had Fragile Strength, I probably would put it at A, you know, because while it has the same powerful busted effect, you know, every time you die, it breaks and you have to get a new one. So considering that, for most people who are going to die every now and then, it's not the best thing because it's annoying to having to go back and redo it, you know? But for a pro player, sure, you know, or if you're doing the freaking, you know, the one life run, then sure, you know, it makes sense to put it up here. But for most people, it'd be at A. Unbreakable one, though, is obviously S, way up here. And then the Unbreakable Greed one is the third one. The Unbreakable Greed one basically makes more money spawn, more geo spawn. It costs 2, and it also doesn't even make that much more geo spawn. I have a problem with this one because it just doesn't seem that useful. They either needed to make it 1, you know, but make it 2 for this one, 3 for this one, 2 for this one, 1 for this one, but they made it 2, or make a little bit more geo spawn. It's just so little, the amount of additional geo you get, that a lot of the time I just can't see this thing being too useful in the long run, you know, so I'm gonna put it in C. Well, it's not garbage, it's, you know, it's okay. We are nearing the end, moving on to Voidheart. Voidheart, if we're thinking logically in terms of gameplay, this thing is an obvious D. In terms of story, it's obviously up here because if you want to get the endings and stuff, sure, but we're going based on gameplay. it's basically useless, but it also just becomes permanently, you know, attached to you, permanently equipped. So while it doesn't cost you anything, it also doesn't really do anything, aside from giving you those, you know, better endings and stuff like that, which is cool. But I'm going to put it down here because it has no practical effect in terms of what it does for gameplay. The next one is Wayward Compass. Wayward Compass is, out of all these, it's the trickiest to put. Because you can make an argument and say that it belongs in S. You know, because every player, every new player or every player that doesn't know the game too well, obviously needs it all the time. They need to know where they're going or else they're going to be lost and waste so much time in the long run. Because it's only costing 1, and it's a very important element to be having in the game, right? You need to do this. Sure. However, other people can say it belongs in D. Because it doesn't do anything to you in terms of gameplay. It doesn't improve your combat, it doesn't improve anything in terms of, you know, damage and anything like that. Which is also fair, especially if you know the game well. If you know the game very well and you're a pro at Hollow Knight, this thing is an absolute joke. It's useless. And it belongs at D, right? Because of that, I think in general, we're just going to split the difference, meet right in the middle. In the end, it's a useful one, okay? I mean, for most people. Yeah, some people will find it completely useless, and that's fair enough for them. But in general, I'm just going to be right in the middle. From 5 tiers, put it in 3, fair enough, right? And the very last one is Weaver Song. Weaver Song is another one that in general is pretty damn bad. I'm going to put it down here in D. It makes some weavers appear, you know, or these freaking enemies that you would normally fight. It says summon weaverlings to give the lonely bearers some companionship and protection. There's better ones for companionship. If you want one that costs 2 with companionship, go with this one, because this one's good. This one, not so much. Simple enough. There's just better ones. You also get this one much later in the game, you know, and I think it's Deep Nest, which by that point, you don't need it. If you got this one earlier in the game, it'd be overall a much more popular one because early in the game you're more limited on options, but unfortunately that's not the case, you know? So we're just going to put it down here. And that there is the entire list. As you can see, the majority of them are here in these 2, followed by this one, and up here are the busted ones. The majority of the busted ones are the ones that let you abuse powerful spells or your long nail, or your nail being just OP. Seriously. That's about it for this. As always, you know, you can leave comments, you know, on what you think, if it was accurate, maybe not so accurate, and so on and so forth. I'm always down for looking at additional comments and perspectives on this. And like always, leave recommendations on what I should be doing some ranking videos for, because I know some of you really like these types of videos. So yeah, before I end this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on those notifications if you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.